Good afternoon, all of you. How are you? It's been an honor. It's a pleasure to be with Sadhguru. This is actually my very, very first interaction with him. And I've spent the last 45 minutes and learned a lot during the conversation. It's kind of fascinating. And of course, I read a lot about Sadhguru during the last several days, ever since this organization asked me to talk to him and have this discussion. So it turns out, interestingly, he was born the same year that I was born.
Don't believe this. Look at me.
And
I was 1857. You.
And we both hail from the same state, not too far, as a matter of fact. And the places where he did the hand gliding was just about 15 kilometers from my village, where I was born and brought up. So I was born and brought up in this village called Bagalur, and his grandfather was at this place called Chikbalapur, which is about 15 kilometers from our place. And we used to visit that place quite often. Those of you who know Bangalore, there is this beautiful place called Nandi Hills. And as we were talking, he said he was like climbing that place almost on a daily basis, or multiple times per day. I mean, as you're watching the video, right, you could very well imagine and see how fit he is for all these extraordinary things that someone like him, you don't expect, right? Somebody like him to actually do. So what he is demonstrating is that you don't have to be very stringent and restricted to things just because you are in a position like that. I think that's essentially...
No, spirituality is not a disability.
Yeah, spirituality is not... See, that's a good one. That's a good one. So, as part of this India Community Center, we organize this thing called the Sevathon on an annualized basis. And for the first time, we were introduced to this Isha Foundation. Those of you who are here, volunteers of Isha Foundation, can you please raise your hands? Yeah, so there are only a few of them. Our experience of actually dealing with these Isha Foundation volunteers is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, the dedication, the commitment, what they have in whatever job that they are doing is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I was literally blown away. And as we started to study more and more of this institution and the volunteers, essentially what Sadhguru has done is literally, from the ordinary, turning it into extraordinary. That's the beauty of what he has created. And what the world needs today, right, is more such volunteers, more such people who could make a difference in lots of other people's lives. So my first question, obviously, as we try to uncover a lot of these issues related to leadership and how, every one of us who have that inner feeling of discovering ourselves, how the tools that Isha and Sadhguru have come up with as we learn all these things. My first question to Sadhguru is to really get a understanding and the insight from you of how have you built an organization or an institution such with 2.5, 3 million volunteers. It's absolutely extraordinary. So I'm actually very curious to really understand your thoughts and your methodologies.
It's uncanny that you use this term, ordinary to extraordinary, because a few years ago, our brochure for the basic program used to carry this, Isha Yoga, ordinary to extraordinary. So this was a 2-week long program. People come first day, second day, He says, Sadhguru, nothing special is happening to me. I said, did I say anything special will happen to you? No, you said we will move from ordinary to extraordinary. Yes, that's what we are doing right now. That is, I'm intending to make you extraordinary. More ordinary than others. Wanting to be special is a disease. Really, it's an ailment. You wanting to be special means you want to be little better than somebody who's sitting next to you. This is a serious ailment. It's taking a huge toll on individuals and the world. Learning to be extraordinary, more ordinary than others, simply yourself. Suddenly, you will find these are truly extraordinary people. I was… we were doing a 2-day event for one of the American multinational company. The top 25 executives were with us, and I had 9 volunteers running about doing things, as you're saying about them. My greatest fortune in life is that I have truly wonderful people around me all the time. So they looked at this, these are people who are always looking for attrition. So they looked at these 9 people day and night doing all the things that need to be done without anybody telling them anything. I said, Sadhguru, where do you get these people? I said, you don't get them, you got to make them. How do you make them? I said, you have to make them fall in love with you. Oh, how do we do that? First you have to fall in love with them. Oh, they don't pay us for that. Now, you need to understand this. Any human being is willing to do his best, always wanting to do his best, where it means something to him. What he loves, whatever you love, whoever you love, if you don't love anything else except 1 or 2 people, whatever or whoever you love, you want to do the best, isn't it? Can somebody stop you from doing the best? Whatever obstacle, you still want to do the best, isn't it? So why have we not generated people like this in this world, that people are in love with something? Simply because we are always thinking of this whole idea of goal-oriented society, We want the fruit, we are not concerned about the root. Then if you want flowers in your garden, you don't have to think about flowers. You have to think of soil, you have to think of manure, you have to think of water, you have to think of sunlight. Filth to flower, that's how it is happening. If you know how to handle filth well, fragrance will happen in your life. But unfortunately, people want flowers, only flowers. Now you'll end up buying Chinese-made plastic flowers. Okay? Yes, you have a flower, but it doesn't transform your life in any way. It doesn't make any difference either to you or to somebody. Maybe you can sell them to somebody who has no idea what it means to be among flowers. To such a person you can sell, you can make money, you can IPO, you can be bought over, you can crash, all those things can happen. But life is not happening. If life has to happen, if real business has to happen, it must be complementing everybody's life, only then that business will happen. When I first… the first time when I went to the World Economic Forum, I think it's 2006, the business leaders were almost resentful. What is a mystic doing here? Then I sat in a close… like a dinner table. When the 6 people are there, this one person is literally getting at me. I shouldn't have mentioned the year because you'll start guessing who it is. So he heads one of the largest hardware companies, computer hardware companies. And he said, why are you here? Then I said, see, what's your business? He said, I manufacture computers. That company got bought over by the Chinese in the last few years. I said, see, whether you make a computer, or you make a spacecraft, or you make a safety pin, essentially, this business is about human well-being. You have forgotten. Essentially, whether you make a safety pin or a spacecraft or a car or a computer, it's about human well-being, isn't it? And that's my business too. Do you have some issue? I don't make computers, nor do I make safety pins, but I'm directly addressing human well-being. You're trying to complement it in so many ways. And if you forget that your safety pin is about human well-being, or your computer is about human well-being, or your car is about human well-being, then you will start generating monsters who will work against human well-being, which we have done it again and again, isn't it? The largest industry on the planet is arms and armaments. The second one is pharmaceuticals. The third is alcohol. One is straight away death. Another gets you sick, another tries to get you back. This shows where the human beings are. This shows the consciousness of the planet. So this is very important. You being in a… I don't know why you're not on a tech peak, you're in a tech valley.
Bubble.
It's a valley.
It's a bubble.
It's not a silicon peak, it's a silicon valley, you know.
Has a lot of peaks, by the way.
That's a very humble admission that it's a valley. See, for the first time in the history of humanity, this is very important, we as a generation of people. Even 25 years ago, this was not possible. For the first time in the history of humanity, we have the necessary resource, capability and technology to address every human issue on the planet, everything. Nourishment, health, education, you name it. Now, the only question is, are we going to generate human beings who will use our competence for well-being, or will they use it against ourselves? This is the biggest question. All these days it was a question of can we do it or not. Now the question is, will we do it or not? We can do it, there's no question anymore about can. The question is only, will we do it or not as a generation of people? We as a generation, this is the biggest question in our minds, in our lives. Will we do it or not? The previous generation, can we do it or not? That was their problem. Now it's only will. So it's only willingness that's needed. So the volunteering that you're talking about, what a volunteer means is not that he's just working for some cause or the other. To be a volunteer means to become willing with the process of life, that you're not a resistance, that life doesn't have to beat you. You are willing, you're a big yes to life. So, I don't want volunteers to be just committed to one little act that they're doing with Isha or something else. To be willing for everything that's around you. If you become 100% yes to life, you will be life and you will do the best things for life around you. This needs to happen. The higher you get in terms of your power and capability, the more responsible situations that you get to in your life, the more it becomes important. What kind of a human being are you within yourself? Because once you get to a certain perch, you have a certain capability, you have a certain impact, that every thought, every emotion, every action that you generate is going to impact millions of people. When such a privilege is vested in you, who you are needs to be worked at, isn't it? If your work is important, who you are needs to be worked at. That is the most important thing.
Sir, I think this is a beautiful answer. So talking about, Silicon Valley, if you ask any of these people, pretty much, right, if you look at their daily routine or a weekly routine, these are young people, ambitious to grow in their careers, to become leaders within the organization, and at the same time, tremendous amount of pressure from the family side or children and so on and so forth, right? So constantly there is like hundreds of things that you are juggling with on a daily basis. How do you think these people can balance between all of this and especially this volunteerism that you talked about, right? Which is also equally important. Because if you talk to, many of these people to volunteer, they'll say, yeah, I'll do it after I retire. That's like the normal answer. But by then it's too late. You don't have the energy, you don't have the desire. So how do you kind of balance it out?
I'll do good things when I'm no good for anything else. Sorry.
I agree. How do you think they should balance it out?
See, I feel this is a kind of thing that is spreading all over the place. They're asking business leaders to volunteer in this, they want to be socially responsible, this, that. I don't believe in that. In my opinion, if you're good at something, you just take it to the peak. It will naturally benefit people. It is not necessary you have to go out and do something else. Not necessary. I would say, if you are good at developing something technologically, you just do it. Do just that and that and that. It's not necessary that you have to come and volunteer and do something in Isha Foundation. You come to Isha Foundation also to enhance your ability to do your tech thing. Because in what way you can… See, it takes a certain amount of time in one's life to get a grip over something, yes? To be able to do something well, it takes a certain amount of time. At that time, you try to do 10 things that somebody else is doing because they think it's socially responsible and rubbish, you will lose your edge. If as long as you're operating out of a larger vision than simply a small personal ambition, if you have transformed your life from ambition to vision, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're good at something, you should be doing only that. If you do something else and something else because to find social acceptance or it's politically correct to do that, it's waste of time, energy, and a certain genius that every human being has will be wasted simply trying to be politically correct. But does it mean to say you shouldn't be concerned at all about anything? So people who are busy, who don't have the time to do simple things which make a difference, they fund it, they support it, they do it in so many different ways. They don't have to necessarily physically get there and do things. This whole, I don't know what you call it here in India, this corporate social responsibility, you have that too?
Yes.
Everybody has.
Oh. If you just build your business itself in such a way that it benefits everybody, you don't have to… So that means, see, somewhere in our consciousness, our understanding is business is a way of robbing from the world and then we will give back. No, I want you to structure your business in such a way that it's a tremendous contribution. And it is. Even if you don't intend, it is, isn't it? Yes or no? Even if you don't intend it must be good to people, you want to rob them, still it is good to the people. But if you have that intention, you will enjoy doing what you're doing and you will structure it little more differently. There is no need to think only philanthropy is the only way to serve. I don't believe that. Our very life activity can be a tremendous opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. And making a difference is not always giving something to somebody. Empowering them, creating possibilities is a tremendous way of doing things, isn't it? So I feel this social responsibility and business being two separate things itself is a crime. They should not be. Why should anybody think of activity that is not socially responsible? You must understand the very business that I'm creating is socially responsible, isn't it?
So basically, what you're saying is…
I'm saying don't be a Robin Hood, don't rob somebody and then try to give it to somebody.
When you prioritize, when you prioritize, right, so do whatever you're meant to do, that properly and well, and then if you have the time, if you have the willingness, if you have the interest, right, then you can go and do the rest of the things.
I wouldn't say what you're meant to do because this is a very dangerous thing. People who think that they have God-given purposes are very dangerous people, you know. Not about what you're meant to do, what you're good at. What you're good at, you must do that. But if you're doing something with a larger vision than just with a personal ambition, naturally you will make sure the benefits of that spread.
Yeah. So one of the other things that's been kind of bothering, I've been in the Valley for the last 32 years, and
That's a wrong expression. You must say, I've been hitting the peaks.
One of the things that has not happened or happening at a very slow pace, right, is the woman leadership. And that's kind of a missing component. And this is something now, there is a big talk going on, especially with the Facebook CEO writing a book called The Lean In. And what are your thoughts around that? Is this something that, socially this is a challenging thing, or people are blocking it? What are your thoughts, and how should people overcome to…
Those who think women are not leaders are not married. Do you agree with me? So, I feel leadership should be free of gender. You don't look at a leader for being a man or a woman. You look at them for what qualities they exude. Why should you bother about what is within their clothes? Why are you concerned about that? That concern is only in one area of life. You should not have that concern with what is behind their clothes. Why is somebody a man or a woman when you see them as a leader? That should stop. That should completely stop. In places of work, that should be absent. That you just look at a human being for who they are. Why should you look at them always as a man or a woman? This itself is a certain prejudice. Oh, this is a woman leader, you have to support her. What? How can she be a leader? And anyway, it is just that the very fact that all of us exist, we came out of a woman, so naturally, biologically, she has a little larger responsibility than a man, okay? If you deliver a child, it's a 20-year project, okay? That is if they do well. If they don't do well, it's a lifelong project. So because of this in-between project that arises suddenly, generally a woman stays back, maybe in the business world a little bit, unless she is chosen to be otherwise. I'm saying naturally, I'm not saying this is how it should be. Naturally it is so. The fact that we all exist means some woman dedicated 15–20 years of their life to make us who we are, isn't it? Why are you underestimating that? Why are you downgrading that activity? Why are you not giving the credit for somebody who produced the leader?
Correct.
Isn't it? If you're valuing a leader, why are you not thinking about the person who produced the leader? Is there no value for that? Is there no quality involved in that? I must tell you this. People always ask me, who is your role model? I don't roll with any models. I say, I have no role model. I have no such thing. But who made you? Who made maximum impact on you? Not really, I never looked at it that way, but if I have to really look back and see who made the maximum impact, and it's continues to be a series of women. Starting from my great-grandmother, who lived to be 113, she lived very close to your village. She lived to be 113 years of age.
Wow.
And well, she never went and led any business or anything, but the big businessman that my great-grandfather was, she had him around her little finger. So, the leader's leader.
Correct.
The leader's leader…
In the house.
Maybe she chose to remain in the house, but do not underestimate the impact of that leadership. Any number of times this man in his adventure could have gone crazy and gotten lost. Those times, the person who held them back and encouraged them at the right moment, having a sane woman behind you. It's very important, I'm saying a sane one. She may be crazy about you, but she must be sane. This is the expectation of a man. You want her to be crazy about you, but you want her sane. But a lot of women fulfill that. And my own mother, she always lived as a housewife, You know, her life was simply dedicated to the 4 children that she had. And when I really look back and see, in one way, my life and the basic qualities of my life has been shaped by her, that is, never once did she ever utter, "What about me?" in her life, okay? It's simply there, her life is for us. We took it like it's 100% guaranteed and granted that her life is for us. And just that quality, that somebody never said, "What about me?" and she always remained joyful and peaceful and singing and, doing just what is needed. I think that is one of the biggest leadership qualities that I have exhibited and been appreciated by people, that I never thought about what about me. And it's essentially an inheritance from her if you really look back, because she created that atmosphere. She never spoke about leadership, about selflessness and this and that, no lectures anywhere, but that's how she lived. And how can you not imbibe it in some way? You cannot help it.
So, by the way, if any of you have any questions, please raise your hands. There are volunteers who have microphones, and feel free to ask any questions to…
No, right now what I said may be misunderstood and I may be in trouble with women in America. So let me clear
clarify.
This does not mean a woman should remain within the house. I am just saying, because of a certain biological responsibility that she normally has, she can choose not to have it, but that she normally has, it sets her back by 15–20 years. So for her to start a race 20 years behind somebody is a little… she may not reach the same place the man reaches simply because of this, because you jumped the gun and started off the moment you had the opportunity, she's starting 20 years later. So that needs to be appreciated for sure.
But we do have leaders now, like if you look at the CEO of Yahoo, she delivered the baby and she was back at work in less than 2 weeks. So they're setting examples that, this is actually doable. It's not a… because of these biological issues, you don't need to…
It is doable, but at a cost that you may realize later. It is at a cost. Cost not for you, you may be capable of that, but the child may not be capable of that. Because I must tell you this, I don't know, I'm just making it very personal if it's okay with you. When we were children, my mother did everything in the house, cooking, cleaning, drapes, everything. She was always stitching up something. If we traveled somewhere and if there's an empty pillowcase in a hotel room or somewhere, she would say, "How can children sleep on an empty pillowcase?" And she would just pull out her needle and stitch one tiny little green parrot or one 4-petaled flower. Even now, it's so deeply in my mind. Looking at that tiny little parrot like this, I would have fallen asleep many times. The tiny little parrot is not just a parrot. That expression makes you who you are. Today those little things that I do, I don't do any great things to these people. Those little things that I do, they value it so much, this is just a multiplication of those little parrots that I saw on the pillowcase. Just for one night we were sleeping somewhere, but she would say, "How can children sleep on an empty pillowcase?" And she would stitch up one tiny little parrot. And do not underestimate these things. My father was a wonderful man, he was the one who brought all the resources to the home. But when I look back and see, I can imagine my home without my father very easily. But I cannot imagine my life without my mother. So, the values that we are setting the value of success need not always be measured in terms of economics. It has to be measured in terms of life.
Very nice, very nice. Yes? Naren Bakshi? Actually, what you can do is have it one on that side, one on this side, so that people can line up to ask questions.
Sadhguru, I've heard you before at India Community Center, at TiE, and you're inspiring a lot of people. And it is really true what you said from technology point of view. Human race absolutely, absolutely can solve problems of water, energy, education, everything is possible. What is stopping in more than one country, not just in India, but even in America, is the issue of governance, a good governance. So is there anything that you think that will happen, that we can make it happen, that will improve how we govern ourselves around the world so that we don't have terrorism, we don't have all these issues that are, even in America, people feel that all this bad things happen was partly because of thinking about themselves, not this society.
Almost the entire world today is under a democratic rule. That means you can decide the governance or what kind of governance that you have. What's the percentage of people who vote in America? I don't know the percentages. What, 50–60%? 40? Less than 50%. In India we're a little better, about 60% of the people are voting. So if you're concerned about governance, this is one simple thing, an expression that you have to do every 4 years, we have to do every 5 years. But what you need to understand is, a democratic process is not just about voting, it is not a spectator sport. There are many, many instruments in democracy with which you can participate on a daily basis. There is scope for that. But most citizens of democratic nations have never bothered to educate themselves about how to participate. They'll say, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. So one thing we can do is bring it into the education system itself as to how you can participate in the democratic process, what are the instruments through which you can find expression in a democratic setup is something that needs to happen, which I don't know whether by neglect or by intent, it's not been brought into the education process. But it should be brought in. The young people should know how they can participate. If they don't like something, how they can participate through a democratic process, not that they have to go and burn something or stone something or stop something else, you know. Whenever young people get angry, they're trying to stop something. No, when something is not working well, you should see how to make it work better rather than trying to stop everything. So these modes are there, but anyway, everything about governance may not change tomorrow morning, but at least every 4 years or 5 years you have an opportunity. But now you may be complaining about the choices that you have. Maybe the choice is not great. Well, that's what is on the menu right now. If we want to get better things on menu, many things have to change and those things don't change just like that. Now, because I see that your concern is largely India. India, we don't have a bad governance, we just don't have any governance right now. It's just happening. So, because we need to understand India will not happen. India as a nation will not happen because you change a few policies here and there. In India, anything that has to be successful has to become a movement. Unless it becomes a movement that people emotionally attach themselves to, no true change will happen in that country. By simply policy changes, they'll just all remain on the paper, it'll not come down and percolate down to the people who matter. So, to build movements, we have done many things. We have started an ecological movement. People never believed this will work. This happened, you know, in the year 1998. Certain UN experts came and they made a prediction, Tamil Nadu by 2025 will be 60% a desert. I don't like predictions, whether they're economic or astrological or whatever because when you make a prediction, you're making prediction from the cold facts that you have. You're not taking into consideration what is beating in the human hearts. Because human beings can change things tomorrow morning. That's never taken into consideration into these predicaments, into these predictions that are happening. So, when they made this prediction, I didn't like it and I didn't believe it. So, Tamil Nadu becoming a desert, out of question, because Tamil Nadu or the southern part of India is one place on the planet where there is a history of agriculture for 12,000 years. There are people been farming the same land for 12,000 years. And 12,000 years a land can nourish us and in one generation it'll become a desert? I didn't believe it first of all, and I didn't like it either. But I wanted to check it out, so I just drove around Tamil Nadu just to see firsthand because, I'm not educated like you. If I have to see something, I have to go and see it. So I drove all over Tamil Nadu and saw. Then I realized it's not… what they said is not true because it's not going till 2025, it's going to happen much faster. Because as I see, 4 perennial rivers have gone completely dry in 15 years' time, and water has dropped. When I came to Coimbatore city first time in Tamil Nadu in '87, the water was at 100–120 feet level, the groundwater. Today it's 1400 feet. So, I thought what to do about this. So one simple fact that I noticed was, national aspiration in India is 33% green cover. Tamil Nadu's green cover on that day was 16.5%. So I thought, how to raise it to 33%? It's one simple thing you could do, put back green cover on it, because desertification happens not necessarily because of no rain, because of lack of vegetation. Excess rain happens, the runoff creates the desert. So I just called a bunch of people and told them, I've made a simple calculation. If we plant 114 million trees in 8 to 10 years' time, in 15 to 20 years, we'll have 33% green cover. They said, Sadhguru, do you know what is 114 million? They're asking me, have you figured out how many zeros? Then I asked them, what's your population in Tamil Nadu? They said, 62 million. I said, see, if all of us plant one tree today, take care of it for 2 years and plant one more, what's the number? You got it? So can't we plant one tree? Even a beggar on the street can do it. If a beggar plants one tree and nurtures it, he'll have a growing office for himself. So, initially I spoke to people, they wouldn't believe. So I said, okay, let's take this one hill. There's a mountain behind us, it's a rainforest, but this particular hill has been sheared off all trees. There's a furniture factory where the ashram is now. We bought it out at 4 times the market price because I wanted to close down that furniture industry. So this one hill completely off, any big tree, all gone. So I said, let's make this one thing happen. So I don't want to go into the details, it was a unique way of doing it. In about 23 days, with a little over 4,500 volunteers, all I had to do was 2 meals a day I gave them, and we created a song for them to sing through the day. And we planted over 6 million trees on this hill in the form of seeds. There's a particular method in which everybody said, this is black cotton soil, if you plant a seed, it will not come. So I came up with a unique device where 100% sprouting happened, and largely they survived, over 90%. And today you will see the hill is green. In the summers it used to turn brown. Today our temperatures are down by 3 to 4 degrees compared to Coimbatore city. It used to be higher than Coimbatore city about 15 years ago. And when I made a demonstration of this, first 6 years anyway I spent planting trees in people's minds, because that is the hardest terrain to plant. And now in the last 8 years, we have planted over 17 million trees across Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu's green cover officially has gone up by 7.2% according to the government. The Google Maps show it has gone up over 10%. All this, we have not given up our life to do this, it's just one part of our activity, okay? It's just a small activity. We started over 1,200 nurseries across Tamil Nadu. I got people committed that any sapling that dies, within 15 days it must be replaced. So because of this, our survival rate is over 84%. And the sponsors who come with us are very happy because nowhere else it happens at this success rate. This is all because I created an emotional connect for the people. First meeting I had, when I series of meetings in various villages and towns, I called people, ordinary people, who all own 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres, these kind of simple farmers. I always call the meetings in hot sun, outside. There's a big tree there. but I won't hold the meeting there, I'll hold the meeting here, in the hot sun. They sit here, what Guru? Sadhguru, at least we can sit there. I said, no, we'll sit here, why? What's wrong with this place? They all sit down like this, sweating. I said, I speak to them and then, shall we sit under the tree? Oh yes, one big roar. Then they go sit under the tree. When you sit in hot sun and then enter the tree shade, then you know the difference, wow. It's such a big experience. For others who've always been driving around in air-conditioned cars, they won't know what's the thing. Walk in hot sun or sit in hot sun for some time, then move under a tree, such a big experience. Then I created this, just see how you're breathing, yes. See what you're exhaling, the tree is inhaling right now. What the tree is exhaling, you're inhaling. Without this relationship, you cannot do. And I set up simple processes for them to feel it, at least psychologically, if not experientially. Once they understood that one part of their breathing equipment is hanging out there, now you don't have to tell them, don't cut it, plant it and all this. Now it's such a big movement. Nobody can stop it, it's just going on and inspired hundreds of other smaller organizations to come up and do the same thing. So I put out a thing, we created a record planting some 850,000 trees. Nobody is allowed to plant more than 2 trees. You can plant 2 and encourage a friend to plant 1, so 3 per person. Over 225,000 volunteers came out from morning to evening with military precision, from 8 to 5. They planted over 850,000 trees. So, this became a Guinness record something. So I just throw it out to every other organization. Somebody should break this record as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, they have not. But they should. If you break it, we will break it tomorrow. I'm saying
we really need to spread this message as quickly as possible to
tomorrow morning we are planting 1,008 olive trees in your area.
Wow. No, the reason why I'm saying is, I heard a rumor last time when I was in other part of southern India that people are digging even deeper, that pretty soon they'll start tapping from the Great Lakes of America. They'll drill so much that they'll start getting water from…
If they drill straight, they'll go to Mexico, don't they?
Yeah, no, I think the key message is we really got to spread this as quickly as possible so that, even the village where I come from, where we used to get water at 60, 70 feet level…
It's all gone.
Yeah, you have to go as much as almost 1,000, 1,200 feet now.
See, the problem is the leadership. This is a serious problem with any democratic government, is their eyes are always on the next election. They're trying to do populistic things. They're not doing sensible things. They're not doing things that need to be done by an administration. They're doing things to win an election again. I feel in a country like India, whatever, whether you elect the divine or the devil, you must suffer it for 10 years. Then people also will vote more responsibly. Because this every 5-year election is taking such a big toll, nobody is focusing on what needs to be done. Everybody is focusing on how to please everybody so that I win the next election. At least they must have a bandwidth of 4 to 6 years to do some solid work. Last 2 years they can do their political tamasha, Right now in these 5 years, by the time they settle down, 1 year is going. By the time they get their hands onto work, another 2, 3 years are going, by then an election is coming. Things are not happening the way they need to happen. I'm not saying this is the only solution, but unfortunately, for whatever reasons, not blaming anybody, we have not produced leaders who are committed to doing the right thing. We have produced leaders who somehow desperately want to be leaders. This is a great tragedy of democratic process. So, I think the people also, all of us, also need to understand this. Once somebody is elected, we should stop leg pulling. We should give them a free hand to what they have to do. You put somebody on the chair and keep pulling their legs, so they will try to keep doing things which will please a larger number of people who have no vision for the nation, but they have their personal requirements. There are lot of anomalies in this, it's not a simple solution, but it doesn't mean that there's no solution. There is solution if somebody is determined enough and focused enough.
Wonderful. You have a question, madam?
Hi, my name's Nancy. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to listen to your speech. Very inspiring. It opened many perspectives from different levels that I haven't seen before. So 3 things that I remember from the speech earlier. One is you mentioned about when you produce something good for human. That's one. And the other one is, when you do something with love, with passion, it's normally, it get to, it's mostly a drive, a motivation for you to come up with something creative, become successful. So this question had to do with motivation. What happened when the passions kind of like tamed down with all the trouble, hardship, and other obstacles? What would be your words of wisdom to help the entrepreneur to go past that obstacle point and to go across all the challenges and get to the destination that he or she wanted to?
I would like to correct that a bit, what you said. See, do not try to reduce them into some kind of values or ethics for your life, that you must approach everything with passion, you must love human beings around you. Please don't love anybody, don't have any passion, it's okay. But what I'm saying is, we are trying to replace humanity with so-called human values. If somebody tries to teach human values, what it essentially means is that you are not a human being, okay? You are not a human being, I am trying to give you human values. No, you are a human being, are you? I thought. So what needs to happen is to stir up your humanity, not to give you values to make you a human being. You don't need values to make you a human being. You are a human being. It is just that in your various identifications that you take, your humanity is forgotten. Yes? You identify with a nation, you identify with a caste, a creed, a race, a gender, in so many ways. The moment you identify yourself with something, you have forgotten your humanity, and slowly it's almost like it's lost. So one simple thing that you need to do is to remind yourself that you're just a piece of life. Rest is all drama, isn't it? Yes or no? What is the most valuable thing in your life right now? That you're alive. Yes or no? Is that so? It better be, you must say yes to this. Because this is a fundamental thing that most human beings have forgotten. They are dying to live. If you die, you cannot live, For life to happen, there are certain fundamentals. Like I was just saying, for these flowers to happen, there are certain fundamentals. If you take care of them, flowers will blossom. For this life to happen, similarly, there are certain fundamentals. If you take care of those things, this will happen. Now the thing is, you planted an apple tree, but your Indian neighbor is expecting a mango out of that tree. Now there's a problem. You can make an apple tree to yield to its fullest, but you don't try to make an apple tree produce a mango because your destination is mango. So, because our expectations are like unrealistic, we are trying to bring unrealistic values. See, love everybody is a horrible thing. It's not an easy thing, it'll destroy you. You try to love everybody and see, it'll just freak you off. Yes or no? If you're joyful, you're very happy right now, whoever comes your way, you're loving, isn't it? What does it mean? It just means that if you have managed to create a certain level of pleasantness within you, that pleasantness will go across in every possible way. Your mind will be pleasant, your body will be pleasant, your emotions will be pleasant. Now in this you're naturally inclusive, flexible, generous, all these things are consequences. Now, right now the modern societies have become like this, their goal is fruit. They're not interested in the root. No. Root, not the fruit, you must understand. If you nourish the root, fruit will invariably happen. If you do not nourish the root, fruit, you have to extract it, and even if it comes, you'll be miserable, if it doesn't come, you'll be miserable. I have to say this with all due regard to all of you. I value success. Success is the sweetest thing in human life. It doesn't matter small things or big things. When you do something, it has to be successful, isn't it? Little things or big things, it doesn't matter. If you hit a ball, you want it to go straight, yes? If you blow your nose and throw this thing into the bin, you want it to go into the bin. If it falls out, yes or no? Small thing or big thing is not the issue. Being successful is extremely important in human life, yes? When it's so important, what is it that makes this happen if you do not look at it? See, if you are on a racetrack, let's say you are on an F1 track, now you go with your beat-up Ford and you try to race on an F1 track, it'll go in 4 different directions. You're just going around in your farm or in your workplace, it's okay. You don't enter an F1 track with a broken car, isn't it? So if you want to go to F1 track, it is not your passion, it is not your dream of that cup that you're going to carry in your hands. It is just that your car is good and you're good. Your focus should be just this, not about winning the damn race. You have the best car and you are the best guy. You may win the race. Still there are other aspects. Still there are other factors. But you may win the race. The possibility is good. So success does not come to you because you desire it, because you work towards a certain level of competence. So, I want to love everybody, you will destroy yourself, believe me. Yes or no? Don't try to love everybody. If you see how to keep this one pleasant, have you noticed? If I meet you when you're very happy, I'm sure you're a wonderful person, no question about it. But if I happen to meet you when you're angry, frustrated, disappointed, whatever, you could be a nasty person, isn't it? So, the pleasantness in your life happens because essentially you have invested in pleasantness within you. Whatever you do, whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it, whatever you do is just an expression of who you are. You cannot do anything more than that. Yes or no? If right now this is feeling very pleasant, whatever it touches, it does those things in pleasant ways. Whether it's mind or emotion or body or whatever, it will express in pleasant ways. So if I am pleasant to you, you say, oh, how loving he is. If I'm unpleasant to you, you say, how nasty he is, isn't it? So whether I am loving or not is your experience. My experience is just that I'm feeling wonderful right now. That's my problem. I'm always feeling wonderful. I wish everybody had this problem.
Despite coming from Toronto, right? You just arrived from Toronto this afternoon.
That's not too far away. And I didn't walk anyway. There was a time when people came to California on a horseback.
Yeah.
Every time I travel, think, okay, how did they do it?
Anyone else with any questions? Yeah, can you please come to the microphone? Yes, go ahead.
So,
Turn on the microphone.
so you talked about planting trees, but now we have this problem of education. People do not have access to great teachers in India. How can you create a similar magic to spread education in India?
Education is definitely a serious concern, and as a part of this, in rural India, particularly in rural Tamil Nadu, I always focus on unpopular projects. Everybody is into, higher education because it makes money and instantly you have access to so many things. Nobody is interested in rural education. It's a thankless job. But if you do not give proper education at that level, from the age of 6 to 16, if they don't get a certain level of competence, after that you're not going to do much with them. A few of them will anyway make it. They will make it not because of the teachers, in spite of the teachers they'll make it. They are different. But that's a small percentage. If the larger group, if you want to take them, the basic education, the primary education, the quality has to go up. So as a part of this, we envisioned that we will start one model school in every taluk. There are about 206 taluks in Tamil Nadu. So we thought we'll start 206 schools so that they will not only transmit education, but we want to bring it into the society. What quality education means, involving the parents, involving the society around, make them understand and value quality education. And at least 35 to 40% of the children who are coming to our schools are first generation going to school. You must see their whole experience, the parental experience of this. So, because this is rural education, essentially the education is designed so that they come out of their economic and social pit in which they are trapped. So they start off with English language and computers at the age of 6. You will see within a year's time, these kids, their parents are working for 100 rupees a day as casual labor somewhere, but these kids speak fluent English. It's a miracle that you're seeing in Tamil Nadu. You should see, it's so fantastic and fulfilling to see this. And that is one level of thing. Then we realized starting our own schools and building infrastructure, doing is taking too much time. So now we have adopted government schools with about 32,000 children right now. We are trying to buffer the… government has built some infrastructure, but they're not able to administer the quality as such. Now, one law they passed a few years ago with a certain good intention. Children go to school at the age of 6, there are pressures already. Why don't they take care of the cattle? Why doesn't the girl cook at home? Why doesn't the boy go to the farm? This is already there, but in spite of that, because it's compulsory, they send them to the school. Suppose they fail in their, let's say, 3rd standard or 4th standard, that's it, that's the end of education. He comes home, goes back to work. So the government devised this, till 9th standard, nobody fails, everybody goes, so that there are no dropouts. Now they're not dropping out that much, they become 14, 15 years of age, they're in 9th standard, 10th standard examination you may fail. At that time if you check them, 2 plus 2 they do not know what, okay? Now they have the attitude of the educated, but they have no education. We are producing millions of youth like this. Now they can't go back to the farm, they can't go back to their father's carpentry shop or blacksmith shop or something like this, because one thing is they don't have the body to go back to the farm. Sitting indoors in the classroom, they don't have the strength to… physical strength to go back to the farm, and they don't have the mental attitude also to go back to the farm, because they are wearing denim pants. They cannot go back to the farm. So now we have produced millions of youth who don't know what to do. They have no skills. At least if they worked with their fathers, they would have had some skills, they would have had a livelihood. No skills, no education, just an empty space in front of them. We are preparing the recipe to generate crime and terror, militancy and crime. We are preparing the necessary recipe because no skills and you're 17 is a dangerous place. Yes? 17 is anyway a dangerous place. If you're focused on something, 17 passes. If you're not focused on anything, 17 doesn't simply pass. It does things to yourself and people around you. So, as a part of this, we decided to bring in about 4 to 8 teachers, depending upon how the school is, we make an assessment, and put these 4 to 8 teachers, take all those students who are not doing well and do extra for them, and it's produced phenomenal results. All these people think is fantastic because we're touching thousands of people, but in my mind and understanding it is not, because it's just a drop in the ocean, just a drop. It's making difference for people, but it's still not a solution for the nation. It has to happen on a really super large scale. There are 9.6 million children studying in the government schools alone in Tamil Nadu. Plus, private schools add up to another 2.5 to 3 million. But government schools alone, there are 9.6 million children. I keep telling them, the politicians and the local leaders, see these 9.6 million children, if you just educate them, empower them and inspire them, if they're an inspired, educated, capable force, you can take the world with 9.6 million educated people. But if you leave them uneducated, uninspired, broken, they can destroy everything. Both are right there. So one big aspect of the world, I don't want to look at this in terms of national segments because nations won't mean anything after some time. Already with technology, The national borders are almost kind of obliterated. You can fall in love with somebody in Pakistan if you're living in India, you know, on the Facebook, of course. So national borders will slowly recede as time goes by, not thinking in terms of nations. One serious thing that we as a generation need to do is, see, right now we're 7.2 billion people. The UN predictions for 2050 say we are going to be 9.6 billion people. If 9.6 billion people happen, we all have to live with 40% less resource than what we're enjoying right now. When I say resource, I'm not talking about oil or gold or whatever, I'm talking about water, air and food. So, it doesn't matter what we do, we will leave a bad world for our children and grandchildren for sure. So one of the most serious things that we need to do is to bring down the human population. We have reproduced irresponsibly. At the beginning of 20th century, we were only 1.6 billion people. In a matter of 110 to 115 years, we have become 7.2 billion people. We're nice, but we're too many. We must understand this. We're just too many. We are trying to curtail human aspiration. It's never going to work, believe me. Believe me, somebody will drive an electric car, but they'll have a Porsche parked in the house, okay? Somebody will do this ecologically. These are all band-aid treatments for a serious cancer, okay? You cannot bring down human aspiration, that's not going to work. But we can bring down human populations if we're determined. So this is another most unpopular thing I'm trying to do in India. We're trying to bring in no conception years in the village. This year, no conception, by choice, by volunteering. Even if 50% of them follow, populations will come down. Your life expectancy has gone up, so you don't have to be in a rush to produce a child. What you were doing at 14, now you're doing at 25, maybe we can push it to 30, 35. All across the world, I'm saying. If you just delay it a little bit, things will happen. And if you do not produce a child till 30, you will think, do I really need it? It just happens in a rush in the beginning, you know. If you pay a little more thought to it, not everybody would want to have children, and it's not necessary. Many of them will understand one more like me is not needed in this planet.
Very nice. So, going back to… yeah, I think you should get the microphone. Going back to, you know, the magnitude of the challenges and the problems, and also to go back to some of the discussions that we had in the room, how do we create a distributed leadership versus, you know, the lack of the leadership that exists today, as you were mentioning earlier. So how do we take the approach that you have and create a distributed leadership to help overcome some of these major challenges that the country is facing?
You're talking about a country?
Yes.
Okay.
India as a country.
Okay. See, as I said earlier, in India nothing can change unless you can create a movement. Everything has to be a movement. It will not change just by policy. If people think so, their brains are somewhere else. It's not like Switzerland, you put something on a notice board and it will happen, okay? It doesn't work like that. We must work with the realities in which we exist. People always come to me and complain, Sadhguru, you know, I cannot work with this person, you know what she did, what he did, all this. I say, see, this is the kind of people we have on this planet. If you cannot work with them, you go to heaven. Because there are supposed to be some ideal kind of people. You go there and work. If you want to do something here, you got to work with these people. That's the way it is. Yes. You don't like these people, but you like this world. How is that? So, it's important that we learn to understand that whatever I'm saying is not a complaint. It is more an understanding of a certain situation. This is the way it is. India, we enjoy being chaotic. You have to admit it. It doesn't matter how well you're doing in Silicon Valley, when you go and land in Bangalore, you'll like it.
That's the hidden secret of all of us.
Because the organization can be overwhelming after some time. Yes, everything works, you appreciate that, but slowly it gets sterile. So, India is a very organic chaos, and that is the strength of India, you cannot change that. You just have to learn to blow the chaos in the right direction.
It's well said, well said.
India doesn't happen because of somebody doing something. It's what the billion people are doing. It's like a beehive, but still we need a queen bee or a king bee, okay? I'm sorry, I'm not using that in some context. When I say a beehive, when we look at a beehive, it's a complete chaos, but there is a tremendous sense of organization within. You should see how Isha functions. Nobody takes any leadership position, but everything happens in extraordinary timelines. If you look at some of the biggest people who run largest infrastructure companies have come and looked at our infrastructure, the timelines in which we have built the buildings with nobody qualified, okay? All taking my own architectural drawings, which are crude and basic, and building it in extraordinary timelines and very unique kind of buildings. Why this happens is, everybody is on to do their best. Lot of chaos happens. It looks like it's not going to happen, but it'll always happen. This is the way that country functions. So somebody has to grasp this and guide it in a way without standing up there and saying, I'm the leader, come on, let's do it. That's not going to work. In India, a leader should not stand in front of the people. In India, a leader should stand behind the people, only then it'll work. A leader who has this much sense and understanding, at the same time forceful. You need to be forceful, otherwise a point is not going to get across. If you speak meekly, it's not going to go across. It doesn't. I batter them. When I stand up and speak, I make fun of everything in their life, from their gods to their toiletry habits, everything. I make it threadbare in front of them, make fun of them and say this. But all this is fine, but this can be used in a phenomenal way, and we always have. We have always done things successfully with a completely chaotic approach. You do not take away that organic strength that the nation has. Do not try to bring back some sterile sense of discipline, it's not going to work. You can't discipline an Indian, okay? But you can fire him up, he gets fired very easily, more easily than just about anybody. So if once you set fire, it's only a question of managing the direction of the fire, isn't it?
Interesting. I think that's very interesting. Yes?
Sadhguru, you spoke about creating movements, right? How do you create a movement for like creating human beings? Because I see a lot of incidents. For example, there was this incident in New Delhi where a family was traveling in a scooter, they met with an accident, and the wife and child were bleeding to death, and nobody really stopped. Normal human beings like us, nobody stopped and helped that child or the lady on the ground. You can teach somebody mathematics, science, you can create better education systems, but how do you teach a person to be more human?
So, just by one news report, don't make a judgment on the whole population. You must understand this. The expression of humanity is on many different levels, but you must understand the Indian cities right now. I would say almost 50% of them in the large cities have moved into urban atmospheres only in the last 10-15 years' time. I may not be 100% right on the percentages, but it's somewhere there. So they do not know what it means to live in a city, they're completely confused about it. In the village, there was a completely different kind of order. Let me tell you, people always say, Sadhguru, all this spirituality you're talking, for thousands of years we're talking, what is it doing? Country is poor, this. I said, that's okay. Poverty has happened in the last 250 years. 250 years ago, that was the largest economy on the planet. 34% of the world's economy was India in 1700s, okay? So, 1,000 years of innovations we have taken. We took this much innovation because we were never a martial nation. People invested their time in mathematics, in music, in art, in spiritual process, not in the art of war. Their soldiers were mainly nominal, just to maintain small things. When outside people came and they only fighting people, the only thing they have is they built massive militaries. All their men, the best men are in the military. So because of that happened, and another thing, they had gunpowder, which the others didn't have, whatever. I don't want to go into the historical thing. But poverty came. You must also understand 300 years ago when the British came to India, there was not a single illiterate person in India. Do you know this? They were amazed because there are no schoolrooms. How did everybody get literacy? But this is how it was, no organization. Everybody had a spiritual process, no spiritual head, no spiritual organization, no educational organization, but everybody had education. Because it just happened from one generation to another. Because of this, you couldn't destroy that particular culture. You understand? It doesn't matter how many innovations came. So they identified this and they said, unless you take away their education system and their strength of spiritual process, you cannot really take charge of this world. These letters were written to the British Parliament. And when the British left, 78% of India was illiterate. So they were successful in their mission to de-educate you. Now, these people have moved from a village to a city. You do not understand how much confusion is there in his mind. He just doesn't understand, it's another world, do you understand? In the village, he understood the social structure, how it is. For example, where we are, there's one police station about 12 kilometers from our ashram. There are about 10 or 11 policemen there, 3 will be always on leave. So, average 7 to 8 people are working at any time. Daytime 5, 6 are there, in the night 2 or 3 are there. There is no cars with prowling sirens and guns and batons and nothing. They got bicycles, okay? So, there is really no law as such, but no crime happens. People are living in such impoverished conditions. Nobody thinks of cutting his neighbor's neck and taking away what he has. People are in really bad situations, many of them, but still you drive in a car, they don't resent you. They don't think of how to cut your neck, cut your throat and take things away from you. This is spiritual process, you understand? For a long time, it's percolated into their system. They understand that, okay, right now I'm like this, he's like this, I should not resent him. So, this translates into a certain apathy when they move into an urban condition. In the village, it's not like that. If something happens to one person, there is no healthcare, there is no law, there is no fire brigade, there's no nothing, okay? But immediately people will respond and things will happen just like that, nobody is left alone. But when they move to the city, the same thing gets reversed because he does not know how to participate in an urban structure. What was a certain level of, discrimination, a certain level of settled nature within himself has turned into apathy, because if somebody falls down, he thinks that's his way, this is my way, and he goes about his way. It's very difficult to understand this, but I want you to understand this from his context. Almost 50% of the urban cities in the urban centers in India have 50% rural population who moved in recently. They don't understand what it means to be a citizen of this large city. This will take some time. It's a moment of transition. Don't judge people just because you see one like that. There are many, I'm not saying there are one, there are hundreds of them, but still you must understand there are 1.2 billion people. For 1.2 billion people, 100 things going wrong per day is not very big. I want you to just understand this. If you remove the law from New York City, just see what happens in 3 days. Very nice. Next question.
Sadhguru, you talked about the leadership and mentioned one has to do, when Jagdish asked a question about how do you prioritize and balance, you mentioned one has to do 100% of what he's good at. but when you go through 18 years of education, you're good at so many things. So how does one find out what is the primary, how one is good at? That's very difficult at a certain point in time.
If you've not found out what you're good at by the time you're 35 or 40, you may not find it.
I think he's saying when you're good at multiple things.
That's not what he said. If you're good at multiple things, you do multiple things. That's not the point. What I am saying is, you do not think in terms of politically correct kind of actions. You think in terms of a larger vision as to what is… in what way, as you see, you must understand, you didn't start this race of life, nor are you going to end it. You are just a relay runner in this whole thing. Yes? Yes or no? You're just a relay runner. For a few years you have to carry the baton. If you're a relay runner, what's your intent? To finish this race little better than your predecessor did. In fact, in the end, that's all you can do. If you look back and see, have we made the world better than the way our parents gave it to us, or have we made it worse? That's all there is with life, isn't it? You may be believing I'm doing so many things, but actually this is all that we're doing. Because the race does not begin with you or end with you. You're just a small part. Play that part fully. And when you play this part fully, different people have aptitude for different things. Whatever is your aptitude, it's best you put your thing there rather than all over the place. If you're good at 5 things, do 5 things, it's fine. But still everything towards enhancement of life, isn't it? I don't even want to use the word well-being because that's understood in a certain way today. The thing is to enhance life, isn't it? The thing is to run little faster. The thing is to hand the baton over little more efficiently than the way your parents did. See, simple thing like raising children, how clumsily people are doing. This has been done for millions of years, why have you not learned how to raise a child?
Well,
even today they're having the same problems. That is not passing on the baton properly, clumsy. You know, it's happened in the Olympics for the US team. Big runners drop the baton, finished. So I'm saying, whatever you have been involved in right now, Jagdish mentioned about, okay, business, family, social things. See, these are different aspects of your life. You need all these things. You need to be successful with your family, it's very important, otherwise they'll pull you down, believe me. They may love you, but they'll pull you down. Yes, you got to keep everything happy and well, isn't it? They must understand the purpose with which you're working. If you have a certain sense of passion and you've infused that passion in them also, they will also stand up and do things with you. If your passion is diverse from them, that's where it's heading, isn't it? So if you have multiple competences, you can do. I do many things at the time. In a day, the variety of activity that I'm doing is just crazy, okay? But it's okay as long as you can do it well. If you can't, you learn to withdraw from something that you're not able to do well. People ask me, Sadhguru, you started so many things. If I tell you how many things we are working on right now, it's insane. It's more than the government departments. That many things we're working on. We don't have the necessary investment and the people to do all these things. But I just keep pushing it. People say, Sadhguru, we're doing all this, suppose it fails. I said, if it fails, it's okay. But I don't want to die not trying. I do not want to die not trying. Whatever we think we can do, let's do it. If it fails, so what? If it fails also, I will die blissfully. If I succeed also, I'll die blissfully. This much I have set forth. So this is something that you have to invest in. Once you decide to be on the fast track, the result should not be so important for you. How you are within yourself must be established. This is what yoga means. This is what inner engineering means, that you create this human being as a joyful human being. Now you jump out and do everything. Now your well-being is not linked to the rate of success that you're achieving. People say, you know, we said 114 million trees. It's already 8 years. We planted only 17 million trees. Sadhguru, how will we do 114? It's not happening, it's not happening. I said, relax, 17 million trees is wonderful. And above all, we have set fire to everybody. Even if we stop, others will do it. Suppose we can't do it, so many other people have caught fire, they will all do it. The important thing is your vision and how you're within yourself. How you're within yourself has not been invested upon at all. You're trying to develop your outside skills. Whatever your skills may be, if you don't have the necessary equanimity and exuberance at the same time, to be equanimous and exuberant, if you achieve this within yourself, then whatever competence you have will multiply 100-fold. If you don't have equanimity, you will see, you will spill all over the place. If you don't have exuberance, then again it will not find full expression. To make yourself into an equanimous and exuberant human being within yourself, which is not in any way enslaved to outside situations. If everything is going dead wrong today, still, this is how I am, okay? With the number of things happening, you must understand, don't be impressed by these 2.5 million volunteers and all this. I want you to understand what it means. Working with volunteers, what it means is, nobody is trained for the job. Do you understand? They're enthusiastic, they're fired up, but they don't know how to do it. So every moment you have to guide it. If I hired a professional, instead of 100 volunteers, one guy would do the job, but you wouldn't have a movement. If he gets a better pay somewhere, he'll run away. These people are willing to die for it. That's a big difference. And another thing is, when you work with volunteers, you can't fire them. Just try to manage your company without the ability to fire the incompetent, you'll go crazy. So you must understand, volunteers means not some great thing, it is a You can't fire them and they're not trained for the job. That's a reality. But still wonderful things happen because that is the nature of human spirit. When they're on it, when they really want to make it happen, they'll find a way. Somehow they'll find a way. That is the beauty of it. And this is the growth of the human being. Somehow, people who never thought they could do all these things, today they have risen and they're doing all kinds of things that they never imagined possible. So, first establish your way of being. Then you go out and do whatever you're capable of. If you're not capable of it, you'll find out halfway. But you're a joyful being, you're exuberant and you're balanced. If these two things you achieve, you will see every drop of competence you have will multiply 100-fold. If you don't have balance, every 100 drops of competence you have will get reduced to 10 drops or 1. Because you yourself are an issue. How can you handle outside issues? First thing is that you are not an issue. You make yourself like this, that you are not an issue. No matter what is the situation, you are never the issue. Just do this one thing for yourself. You deserve this, isn't it? That you are not the issue. There are a million issues to handle every day, but you are not the issue. If you become the issue, that's a big issue, isn't it?
Very nice. Are there others who have questions? You have a question? Just announce your name.
My name is Vrishti Behel. Talking about education and children, being a mother of 2 daughters, I grew up in India and I'm raising my kids here. I want to understand, how would you define leadership in kids, especially when we are in this competitive world, and yet I want my kids to not forget to be human. Like we're talking about humanity, how to generate that value, to be human and to still develop leadership, Simple things like, sometimes I see my daughter, she's playing with her friends, and I see certain kids are guiding, oh, let's play this, let's do this. In a way, that's leadership, I don't know, we would define it, oh, this kid is, very good at, heading out. But when you're not inclusive of, the people that you are around with, would you still call it leadership? And if that's not leadership, what is the right definition of leadership, and how to instill that in kids?
See, leadership, if you look at it as a quality, if you look at leadership as an aspiration, it can produce many disastrous leaders. You may end up producing Adolf Hitlers. Do not ever think of leadership as something that you aspire for. If you look at how to evolve a certain competence with whatever draws you in this life. If you become competent in a certain way, people will naturally look up to you. Leadership should be a consequence. Leadership should not be an aspiration. If leadership is an aspiration, you may produce sick people. Leadership should never be an aspiration. Do not ever use the word leadership with your children. It is not necessary. They must focus on doing something well. If you do something really well, 10 people will look up to it. If it's wonderful, 1,000,000 people will look up to it. That's all it is. Leadership should be a consequence of a certain type of action, not an aspiration. What is your idea of leadership? That you want to be on top of everybody else? That's a sick idea as far as I'm concerned. You want to sit on top of everybody's heads is not a healthy idea, isn't it? You're doing something that invariably everybody looks up to, that's great, that's wonderful. That should happen to every human being. So do not bring this idea of leadership into child's mind. Bring this idea of involvement. Whatever you do, I'm an absentee father, but I still brought up my girl. I just landed here and this family who knows my girl, they were asking, how is she? I said, see, I'm a telephonic father. I'm just fathering on the telephone most of the time. Every day I'm on the phone with her, that's the best I can do. But our meetings are like skirmishes here and there because that's how it is. And just because you're not physically there, will things go wrong? No, you need to understand this. A child does not listen to what rubbish you speak. A child looks at how you are. Please fix that. Before you produce a child, you must look at this. Does the world need one more person like me? Is it good to have 2 people like me, or is it one is enough? So, spend some time on yourself as to how you are. And naturally, the child will imbibe this. Child will not listen to your nonsense, your advices, your thing. No, I'm glad they don't. But they don't anyway. And it's good that they should not listen to your advice. But if you make yourself in a certain way, the impact of that will not go. It will invariably be there. At a certain age, they may act a little funny, but they'll settle down, okay? That's part of their wanting to be things. Recently, I took my girl off formal education at the age of 15 and put her into dance, classical dance. Everybody said, you're crazy. My father, who's a physician, I don't know why I'm sharing all this with you on a camera. Because my problem is, I don't know who is close to me, who is not. In my mind, everybody is like this with me. I don't know how you look at these things. My father was so terribly upset. He's highly educated, always focused on education. I am no education. So when I pulled her off education, he said, you never got educated, don't destroy this, because he was thinking she's going to Harvard, she's going to Stanford. I said, no, she likes dance, let her do that, what's the problem? So today she's become an upcoming artist in the country. Recently she performed and a lot of critics saying good things about her. She was interviewed and naturally they ask, what is your father's advice for you, because they know who I am. So the media is asking her in Delhi as to what is the big advice that your father gave. So she said, my father gave me no advice. This is just 3 days ago it appeared in the newspapers. He gave me no advice. And he brought me up in such a way that even if he gives, I should not take any advice. But he has such a keen eye, so when he speaks, I have to listen because he sees things that I don't see. So I end up listening to him, but in the end, I have the satisfaction I'm doing my own thing. But actually, I'm doing what he said, but he never gives me an advice. So you do this one thing to your children, that stop being a parent. See, when you were growing up, please look at this, when you were growing up, if you had some issue, problem within you, most of you wouldn't go to your parents, you would go to your friend, isn't it? Yes. That friend, it gives his own unqualified rubbish advice. Why is it that you did not go to your parents? Because they should have been your best friends. But it doesn't happen that way because you take a moral high ground that you seem to know better. You don't know anything better, you just came a few years before them, that's all the qualification you have. You may know how to earn a living, but you don't know much about life. Because between you and your child, even now I'm asking you, between you and your two girls, girls is it? Two girls, who is more joyful? They are. So they must be the consultants for life, not you. Why don't you just ask them, how should I bring you up? Yes, why not? Really. I'm telling you, when my girl was 2, 3 years of age, big problems, something, organizational problems, people's problems, individual problems, whatever. People come, I'll just throw it to her. Hey, this is the problem, what about it? At least 70–80% of the time, she came up with such brilliant answers. I'm telling you, this is not because this one girl is special or something. Every child is capable of this because their eyes are not fettered with unnecessary memory, they're just looking at things the way they are. That's something that you have to do to yourself, that your past does not interfere with your present and future. For that you must do some yoga, okay? But your child is already there, make use of that in your home. Your business problem, your family problem, your personal problem, just throw it at them shamelessly and say, see, this is the thing, I don't know what to do. You will see they will come out with a brilliant answer most of the time. Sometimes you will have to make your judgments, it may be too wacky, you know. But above all, you have put them on level with you. Now, tomorrow if they have some issue, the first person they think of is you, not some unqualified nonsense that is waiting at the street corner, okay? And that's important.
I think one last question.
I think to a certain extent you might have answered this, but I wanted to ask, I've known that many people have ascribed various classifications to you, like guru and enlightened being, and I wanted to know whether you identify with those labels.
These are all different roles that you play in your life. And I believe in playing every role that I take up to the hilt. And you must, isn't it? When you're with your family, you must be 100% a family person. You step out on the street, you must be a great driver. You go to the office, you must run that well. Is that not important? So, if you get identified with one thing, you can't do the other thing properly. So identities are only situation-specific. In that situation, yes, when I sit in a certain way, I am an absolute guru, no question. But do I walk the street like that? Definitely not. Do I go home like that? Definitely not. But when I sit there among people who come to learn something from me, I am 100% guru, no question about that. So, for the role that you take on, if you do not play that role fully, then why the hell are you playing it?
Last question. I think we're running out of time, so we'll just take this last question.
So, you spoke about people that are worried about the 97 million trees not yet planted versus
I never calculated the number, you got it right.
versus the ones that enjoy the 17 that have been planted, the optimists versus pessimists, the glass half empty versus glass half full. Have you figured out a way of converting the glass half empty into the glass half full? What's your advice on that?
It's very difficult to explain this. I am not even thinking of 114 million trees, this, that rubbish, okay? My thing is, everybody around me, are they doing enough to compensate for whatever we're using up? This 114 million trees is just a barefoot calculation that I made, okay? I said this much area, this is the area of Tamil Nadu, so many square kilometers. So 33% means this much. What is the gap is this much. One tree in 8 to 10 years will cover about 20 square feet of shade. Actually, it covers much more. I said simply like this, and 114 million trees. Because people need a number to work towards. If I just say, let's simply plant, keep on planting, after 3 days they think they've done enough. So you set some number there. So 114 is not a real target. The thing is, we have to put back green cover. In this generation, Because we have pulled out so much as possible we must put back. That I think they're doing wonderfully well, so that's it.
Beautiful. Well, I think we can probably go on for another hour very easily here. You look at the enthusiasm of the audience, it's really fascinating. It's really fascinating actually to see the depth of knowledge and how well Sadhguru was able to articulate issues across the spectrum, right, which included education, ecosystem, and various other issues that we are all facing, which is really remarkable. I just want to request two things. I was going to actually say the aspiring leaders who are sitting here, but I'm not going to say that now.
No, you can say that.
So the folks here who are working who are working to achieve, right, the results of whatever they are doing, which will ultimately become whatever it is, right? What is your advice? What is your advice, especially in Silicon Valley? See, the leadership is such an important thing, right? And we have seen in the last 10, 15 years, certain challenging moments where people succumbing to pressures where they violate the ethics, insider trading and so on and so forth, which actually poses a huge challenge, especially if some of these leaders are viewed as iconic figures, right? So what would be your advice for all of these people who are here? And number two is something that I'm very curious about, and I don't know if it is doable at all or not. If you can give a glimpse, maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes glimpse of this inner engineering, how many would like to see this or experience this, right? I would be fascinated actually if you could take us through a 5 minute or 10 minutes of this inner engineering that you have brought to this world.
So first of all, talking about leadership, there are three basic qualities which are a must for a leader. The most basic thing is insight. That is, you have some insight that others don't have. You're able to see something that others are not able to see. Otherwise, you're a contrived leader. You somehow gotten up there and you're always worried how you will fall down. Unless you're able to… leadership means you want to sit on a perch. If you sit on a perch and you can't see any better than the people who are not sitting on the perch, you will become a joke. Yes or no? Once you sit on the perch, you must be able to see something that others are not able to see. A leader means he's a lookout person. It need not necessarily mean that you're able to do something better than somebody else, but you're able to see better than somebody else. Once you're able to see something that others cannot see, however clumsy you may be, you still become a leader. People will still look up to you because you are seeing something that they cannot see. This is most important. One needs to just work at that to develop a keenness of sight. Keenness of sight means… So you need to understand, right now human visual apparatus are hugely loaded with memory. There's a whole system of yoga. Inner engineering is just one expression of that. There's a whole system of yoga as to how to clean your eyes of memory. See, to give you an example, suppose there are a crowd of 100 people standing there, but there's one face that you're familiar with. If you look at like this one face seems to be brighter than the remaining 99 faces. Have you noticed this? This is because the vision is aided by memory. Because there is a previous memory, that face stands out. So always in your vision, your memory is playing a very important role. So to develop an eye which is not tainted by memory, see, memory is a useful thing. Without memory, you wouldn't know what's what. But at the same time, to develop an eye which has no memory in it, This is what the yogic systems are referring to as the third eye. Do not understand third eye as some freaky thing that your forehead will crack and something will come out of it. A third eye means these two eyes are hugely aided by the memory process. A third eye is an eye which is not invested in memory, just vision. Simply see. If you look like this, you should not even recognize who is male, who is female, simply looking. You don't even have to recognize this is a human being or an animal or just an inanimate thing, you don't do that, simply looking at it. If you learn to simply look at things without any of the previous acquired memory, then you see things that others cannot see. So whether it's business or spiritual process or whatever, the important thing is that you are not contaminated by your memory, you're able to see things just the way they are. Only if you see something, then what to do about it arises. That's a different level of competence. But if you simply see something that others cannot see, naturally people will look up to you. So insight is very important. Next thing is to have the necessary inspiration to pursue this insight. You may see something, you may not have the energy and the passion to pursue that. Any number of people in their growing years have come up with bright ideas in their mind, but they never had the energy nor the enthusiasm to pursue that because pursuing will extract a certain price from you, pursuing anything. So, any number of you might have had ideas, but to invest your life behind it takes certain courage and inspiration. There is no such thing as courage if you're madly inspired about something. Because if you're venturing out into something new, there is no guaranteed success about it, okay? For this, you must have an inner balance, that your success is not about how much it's going to be appreciated in the world, whether everybody is going to say okay to it or not. That's not the point. What you have seen is so important, it's worth investing your life behind it. This needs to happen. And when things start beginning to happen, when these things start happening, then the most important thing is integrity. As you climb higher, the value of integrity keeps going up, because if you climb 2 steps, people will look at you. If you climb 5 steps, they'll look at you with a binocular. If you climb 100 steps, then they're looking at you with a microscope, okay? So, I mean, even if you keep everything straight, somebody will be always inventing something about you, believe me. Anything that a man can do and cannot do, they accuse me of it, okay? There's no end to it. People who I have never met, I have never seen, seem to know more about me than myself. So this will happen, but that's not the point. It is just that whatever you're investing your life upon, is it worthwhile for you? And is it worthwhile for everything around you? If that much is settled, these things will happen. You don't think of leadership. I am a very reluctant leader, okay? I always like to be not in the limelight, but I am always on, because invariably it happens. Wherever I try to stand at the back, invariably people will push me to the front. This is not because you aspire for it, this is because you're constantly looking at things with a certain vision, with a certain clarity, that invariably people will recognize that, and that should not be the measure of success. How many people recognize you is not the measure of your success. To what extent are you able to follow up on things that you see as a solution? I would say, for whatever I see in my life, I cannot explain this to you, it's very difficult because he's somewhere close to Mysore. This happened little over 30 years ago. On a certain day, I went up this Chamandi Hill. You know Chamandi Hill? Chamandi Hill is… are there people from Karnataka? Oh, okay. In Mysore city, at least at that time, the tradition was, if you want to test our motorcycles, we ride up Chamandi Hill. Want to have a party, we go up Chamandi Hill. If we have something to do, Chamandi. Nothing to do, Chamandi Hill. If we fall in love, Chamandi Hill. If we fall out, for sure, Chamandi Hill. It's like this. So that afternoon, between 2 business meetings, I was running a construction company, and In about 4.5 years, I'm far more successful than most people would imagine possible in a short span. Okay, today's all these IIT companies are all growing like this, that's different. But in that era, that if you can grow at a certain pace, it was considered miraculous. So everybody's clapping their hands, oh so wonderful, you're doing this, you're doing that. And you're young and everything is going great, what's the problem? So between two business meetings, I have just a little more than an hour. So I rode up Chamundi Hill. I know Chamundi Hill like the back of my hand. Right from my childhood I've trekked, I've camped and things. So I went and sat up on a rock. My eyes were still open. Till that moment I thought, this is me. That is somebody else. I have no issue with the somebody else. But this is me, that's somebody else. Suddenly I did not know which is me and which is not me. Everything around me, the very rock on which I was sitting, the atmosphere around me, just everything had become me. I thought this insanity lasted for maybe 5–10 minutes or 15 minutes. When I came back to my so-called normal state, about 4.5 hours had gone by, I'm sitting right there. For the first time in my adult life, tears. Tears and me are impossible, I'm like this. Tears to a point where my shirt is wet, 4.5 hours I'm sitting, tears have been flowing. I've always been… being happy and peaceful has never been an issue. But every cell in my body is bursting with a certain ecstasy which I have never known. With the closest of my friends, when I shared, something is happening to me like this, the only questions that they could come up with was, what did you drink, what did you pop, what did you do? There was nobody to relate to, even my own mind. I am a super skeptic. I am somebody, from the age of 4, I have never entered a temple. If my parents go to temple, I got questions. If they cannot answer the question, I will not enter the temple. They never got around to answer the question, so I never went. So me and spirituality are two different worlds, there's no way to meet. I'm a super skeptic. Here I am bursting with something, when I ask in my mind, what's happening to me? My mind says, maybe you're going off your rocker. Because I did not grow up with any of those kind of things. And in about few weeks, this became like a normal experience for me all the time. What happened within me, I can never articulate, but what happened around me was so phenomenal, people around me could recognize, my whole body got realigned, my voice changed, the shape of my eyes changed. Things happened dramatically, everybody could see it's happening. One day I just sat down and I thought it's 25 minutes. I opened my eyes, a whole huge crowd had gathered. I said, what? Where did you come from? They said, you've been sitting here for 13 days. So, why I'm telling you this is, there are other dimensions of existence right here, and everybody should touch it. Then all the work that you take up becomes like play, Right now, just using two things, what you're using to do your business and your leadership and whatever, your body and your mind, isn't it? There are only two instruments you're using. These two instruments you slowly gathered over a period of time, you understand? When you were born, you were only this much, now you became this much, how? Food that you've eaten. You gathered this body over a period of time, isn't it? What you gather can be yours. I will not dispute that for now, but it can never ever be you, isn't it? Yes or no? You get me what I'm saying? Whatever you gather, you can claim this is mine. But if you say this is me, little off. For example, right now, suddenly I take this vessel and say, this is my vessel, you will think, okay, Sadhguru's got some problem. But let's listen, everybody says he's wise. After some time I say, this is me. Then you will say, let's go. Because this is a clear case of insanity, isn't it? You're doing this every day. Food appears on your plate, you say, this is my food, you eat it and this is me. What you gather, you believe is you, which is a serious problem. And what you call as my mind is a heap of impressions that you gathered, isn't it? Yes? Both body and mind came from outside or no? It's a collection. I appreciate the collection. You can enjoy the collection, but if you think you are that, you lost it. There is a dimension here. There is a dimension of intelligence and capability here. What did you have for lunch? What did you have for lunch today? Huh? Say something more interesting.
working.
Okay, you eat a piece of bread. If you eat a piece of bread, over the afternoon, this piece of bread is transformed into a human being. Yes? Being in Silicon Valley, at least you must admit this much. This piece of humanity that you call as myself right now, your body, is the highest level of technology on the planet right now. Yes or no? Manufactured by you from within with a piece of bread, with a banana, with anything that you eat. There is an intelligence here, there is a competence here which is capable of performing such a miracle that it can produce a technology of this level of sophistication, the highest level of sophistication that you have known, with a piece of bread or a banana or a carrot or an apple or whatever the hell you eat. If only a drop of this you're doing it every day, only thing is you're unconscious. The nature of life is, whatever you're not conscious of does not exist for you. Yes? Right now, if you simply fall asleep, suddenly all of us will not exist for you. The whole world will not exist for you, even you will not exist for you, isn't it? Only what you're conscious of exists for you. Such a phenomenal thing is happening here. There is such a competence and intelligence here which can make a piece of bread into the highest level of technology, but you're unconscious of it. If only you could do it consciously, you would be magical life, isn't it? This is all inner engineering is. Even if a drop of this intelligence enters your life, you will live a magical existence, not a miserable existence. This, I think, must happen to every human being.
Please join me in thanking our wonderful speakers we have today.